"You're lying." The words rang out like a slap across the room. Maya's heart skipped. Her fingers tightened around the paper she held her neatly written notes for career day, now slightly crumpled at the edges. She stood at the front of the fifth-grade classroom, her voice still echoing in the awkward silence that followed. She looked out at her classmates. 29 pairs of eyes stared at her, some wide, some skeptical, some amused. And then, just as she feared, the laughter began. It started with a chuckle from the back. Jake Henderson. Of course, Jake was the loudest kid in class, always surrounded by a cluster of followers who thought everything he said was hilarious. He'd strutted to the front earlier and declared that his dad was the top car salesman in the entire city. "Number one," he said, holding up a finger like he'd won a trophy himself. "He sold a BMW to a rapper last month. No joke. Ain't." Maya had quietly stepped up to the front and said, "My mom works at NASA." She knew what she was risking. Her voice was calm. She didn't exaggerate. She didn't boast. She said it the same way someone else might say, "My mom's a dentist." Or, "My dad works in it." But now, the room was erupting. Jake leaned forward in his chair, a smug grin plastered across his face. "NASA? Like the space people? Come on, Maya, that's a big one. What does she do drive the space bus?" A couple of kids snorted. One girl tried to hide her giggle behind her hand. Maya kept standing, though her knees felt shaky. She didn't say anything. Her mom had told her once, "You don't always have to defend the truth. Sometimes it just stands on its own." But she was 11. The truth didn't feel like it was standing very strong right now. Mr. Preston cleared his throat. "All right, class, let's keep it respectful." His tone was firm, but his eyes flicked to Maya with an uncertain expression. Like even he wasn't sure whether to believe her. Maya bit the inside of her cheek. She wanted to sit down. She wanted to disappear. But her mom had worked late every night this week preparing for her upcoming presentation. She'd spent years, decades, earning her spot. She wore the NASA logo on her chest like a badge of honor, and Maya had always been proud of her. She lifted her chin. "She's a systems engineer," she said, her voice a little louder now. "She helps build spacecraft." Jake snorted again. "That's rich." "You mean your mom works at NASA, like cleaning, like janitor or something?" The laughter grew louder. Maya's cheeks burned. She could feel the sting of tears creeping in, but she forced them back. She wouldn't give them that. She glanced. Around the room, some kids looked uncomfortable. Zoe, who sat next to her and was usually kind, offered a weak smile, but didn't speak up. Nobody did it. It was strange. These were the same kids who had cheered when one boy said his uncle was a TikTok influencer, who had clapped when another girl said her mom owned a boutique that sold real Paris fashion. But Maya's truth had been met with mockery. Why? Because it felt too big. Because a girl like her, quiet, bookish, always wearing scuffed-up sneakers and oversized hoodies, wasn't supposed to have a mom who worked on rockets. She'd asked her mom about that once. Why people didn't believe her when she said what she did. Her mom had smiled a little sadly, because sometimes people's imaginations are smaller than reality. Maya stepped down from the front, her shoulders hunched. She walked back to her desk slowly, the paper still in her hand. She sat down and stared at it. Great. She'd drawn a little NASA logo in the corner the night before. Now it felt childish. Naive, Mr. Preston tried to move on. "All right, who'd like to go next?" But the mood had changed. The classroom wasn't the same. Maya didn't hear the next kid's presentation. She was staring at her desk, replaying every second of what had just happened. Every laugh, every snicker, every eye roll. She wished she could have said more. Wished she had the perfect comeback. Wished she had stood up straighter, with the confidence her mom carried into every meeting, every panel, every interview. But she was just a kid. And being a kid meant that the truth, even when it was incredible, didn't always come with a shield. At lunch, nobody brought it up again, but the silence around Maya was louder than any teasing could have been. People kept their distance. Maybe they were embarrassed for her. Maybe they still didn't believe her. Maybe they just didn't know what to say. She sat alone. Not for the first time, but today it felt different. She picked at her sandwich, remembering the last time she visited her mom's lab, the glowing monitors, the massive simulation screens, the way her mom moved among the engineers, confident and sharp. Her ID badge swinging as she gave instructions about communication modules and software calibrations. Maya had been in awe, not just of the technology, but of the person her mom was in that space, strong, respected, unshakable. That's what she wanted to be. 2. She pulled out her notebook and started sketching a rocket. It's not because she needed to prove anything to the others, but because it reminded her of something important. That her world was bigger than the classroom, bigger than Jake's teasing, bigger than the laughter. And tomorrow, everything would change, because her mom was coming. Maya hadn't told anyone, not even Zoe. Let them laugh, she thought, drawing a tiny figure standing proudly on the rocket's wing. Let them laugh for now. Tomorrow, they'll see, and when they did, no one would ever doubt her again. The classroom had never been this quiet. Just as Liam finished explaining how his mom designed wedding cakes, the door creaked open. Everyone turned. At first, they expected to see the next parent walking in, maybe carrying a briefcase or juggling a stroller. But the woman who stepped in didn't fit any of the expectations. The class had shaped in their minds not after the morning they'd had. She was tall, deep brown skin, and a quiet confidence that filled the room before she even said a word. Her sleek navy blue blazer looked sharp against her crisp white blouse. There was a pin on her lapel, small but gleaming a NASA logo. Not a sticker, not something from a toy set, but an official silver insignia. Real, she held a laptop case at her side, and around her neck hung a badge that glinted with her photo and the unmistakable letters. NASA. Mr. Preston blinked, startled, for a second, and stood up. Hello, he said. Can I help you? The woman offered a soft smile. Yes. I'm Dr. Lila Hassan. Believe I'm scheduled to speak today. She turned her head slightly and smiled toward the back corner of the classroom. I'm Maya's mom. The effect was instant and electric. All heads turned, some fast, some slow, toward Maya, who sat frozen at her desk, her mouth open just a little, her breath catching in her throat. Jake's jaw actually dropped. A few of his friends stared wide-eyed, and Zoe's expression shifted from confusion to stunned realization. Mr. Preston cleared his throat again. Ah, yes, of course. Welcome, Dr. Hassan. Please, come on in. Dr. Hassan walked to the front of the room with a calm grace. She didn't seem rushed or nervous. She didn't look around for approval. She simply moved, steady and sure, like someone who belonged in command centers and conference halls. She set her laptop down on the desk and began connecting it to the projector. Behind her, a giant slide appeared on the whiteboard. A dark screen lit up with a vivid image. The Orion spacecraft silhouetted against the Earth's curve, with bright text that read, "Designing the Future." Inside NASA's Orion mission, no one said a word. Dr. Hassan turned around to face the class. "Good morning, everyone," she said. "As I mentioned, my name is Dr. Lila Hassan. I work at NASA as an aerospace systems engineer. That means I help design and build the systems that allow spacecraft to function safely, especially when humans are involved." She paused, letting the words hang in the air. A few students sat straighter. "I specialize in communication protocols and control systems. In simpler terms, I help make sure spacecraft can talk to Earth even when they're hundreds of thousands of miles away." A hand slowly raised Peter from the front row, like radios. Dr. Hassan smiled. Much more complex than radios. But the basic idea? Yes, without communication systems, we wouldn't know what astronauts are seeing, feeling, or experiencing. We wouldn't receive data from probes or satellites. And when something goes wrong, we wouldn't be able to fix it from here. Space is silent, and I help make it speak. Gasps rippled through the class. Another hand shot up. "Did you meet any astronauts?" "I've worked on systems that support crewed missions like the upcoming Artemis missions, which will return astronauts to the moon and beyond." Someone whispered, "Whoa." Jake was staring at the screen, his earlier smirk completely gone. He looked like he'd been hit with a silent, invisible wave of awe. And maybe a little bit of regret. Dr. Hassan clicked to the next slide. It showed blueprints, a control room. Then a short video clip of her walking through a NASA lab wearing a badge, hard hat, and lab coat. She was pointing at equipment, standing next to technicians. Laughing with other engineers in one frame, she stood in front of a massive window, looking into a chamber filled with simulation equipment environment used to mimic zero gravity. "That's me," she said casually. "Running final system checks for a module we're testing. It's designed to regulate oxygen and temperature during long-duration missions." She wasn't boasting, she was just telling the truth. But to the kids in the room who were used, too, hearing about real estate agents, shop owners, and salespeople, it sounded like something from a movie. More slides followed. A side-by-side image of a rocket launch and a design schematic, a video of a Mars rover deployment, a group photo with a team of scientists, an astronaut standing in front of a launch pad. Then came the last slide, a signed photo, an astronaut in full suit floating inside the International Space Station, holding a white card that read, "Thanks to Leela Hassan and her incredible team, your work brings us home." The class broke into applause without even waiting for a prompt. Even Mr. Preston joined in. Zoe turned to Maya and whispered, "Oh my God, your mom is amazing." Maya felt something in her chest shift, like something that had been locked up for too long had finally opened. She didn't need to say anything. Her mother had said everything with her presence, her work, and her truth. After the applause faded, Dr. Hassan turned toward the room. "Now, I know some of you may have doubted my daughter earlier," she said gently. "That's okay. Sometimes people doubt things that sound unfamiliar or extraordinary. But I want you to remember something. Greatness doesn't always come." Wrapped in noise, she glanced toward Maya, smiling warmly. "Sometimes the people who speak the quietest have the strongest roots. My daughter is one of the brightest thinkers I know. She's curious, focused, and not afraid to dream. She sees rockets, not just as machines, but as bridges. And I know she'll build some of her own one day." Maya looked down quickly, blinking. Fast, her hands gripping her desk, heart full. Jake slowly raised his hand. Dr. Hassan nodded at him. I'm sorry for laughing," he said, glancing at Maya and then quickly back at his desk. "I didn't know." Dr. Hassan tilted. Her head, "That's okay, but now you do." He nodded again, quieter than anyone had ever seen him. A few kids clapped again, not for Dr. Hassan this time, but for Maya. Zoe leaned over and whispered, "You're literally the coolest person I know." Maya finally smiled. Really smiled. Dr. Hassan looked at the class one last time. "Never underestimate someone because they speak softly. And never think your dreams are too big for the world. Sometimes the world just has to catch up." With that, she packed up her things, thanked Mr. Preston, and walked toward the back of the classroom toward Maya. The kids parted like waves around her. As she reached her daughter's desk, she leaned down and whispered something no one else could hear. "Proud of you, baby." Maya stood up, and for once, all eyes followed her, not in doubt, but in admiration. As she and her mother walked toward the door together, the classroom buzzed with a new kind of energy. It wasn't just excitement, it was possibility. Because now, they'd all seen something they hadn't believed until it stood right in front of them, and none of them would ever forget it. The room was still echoing with applause as Dr. Hassan gave a final nod of thanks to the students and turned back toward the desk where she had left her laptop. The slide of the astronaut still glowed on the whiteboard behind her, casting a soft halo of light across the walls. One by one, the students glanced at Maya Relly, looked at her like they were seeing her for the first time. Jake, who hadn't said a word since his quiet apology, leaned forward in his seat, elbows on his desk, eyes wide and flickering between. Dr. Hassan and Maya, his usual smirk was gone. There wasn't a trace of sarcasm or arrogance left in his posture. Just awe, something that almost looked like guilt. Mr. Preston, still clapping, motioned for the class to settle down again. "Thank you again, Dr. Hassan," he said. "That was not only enlightening, it was inspiring. I think we all learned something today, and not just about rockets." Dr. Hassan smiled. It was my pleasure. She gathered her things slowly. Not in a rush, as if she knew this moment needed to linger just a little longer. The class didn't want to let it go either. Hands shot up one after another. Do you get to go into space too? Have you seen aliens? Do you think we'll live on Mars one day? Dr. Hassan answered each question with patience, humor, and a bit of wonder. She spoke not like someone who thought she was above the room, but like someone who remembered exactly what it was like to be sitting in those desks, full of questions and dreams that didn't quite fit the walls around them. As she finished answering the last one, the classroom bell rang loud and sharp, slicing through the moment. The end of the day. Backpacks zipped, chairs scraped, but for once, the usual stampede didn't happen. No one raced to the door. Instead, they lingered, casting glances at Maya and her mom, not sure if they were allowed to say anything more. Maya stood slowly, her heart thudding with something new, not nerves. Not shame, but pride. That glowing, chest-warming kind of pride that made her feel bigger than she was. She held her backpack in one hand, her mom's hand in the other. Zoe was the first to approach. She hesitated for a moment, then smiled and said, "Your mom's basically a superhero." Maya laughed softly. "I know." Then came Peter, then Liam, then a few more. They didn't ask questions anymore. They just said things like that was so cool, and your mom is awesome, and you were right all along. Jake hovered in the background, clearly unsure of himself. Eventually he made his way forward, shoving his hands into his hoodie pocket. He looked at Maya, then at the floor, then back at Maya again. "Hey," he mumbled. I was a jerk. I'm really sorry." Maya didn't gloat. She didn't snap back with a clever line, or remind him of everything he'd said that morning. She just nodded. "It's okay," she said. "You didn't know." Jake looked relieved then. Added, "Your mom's a legend." "She always was," Maya replied. "You just didn't see it." Dr. Hassan chuckled softly beside her. "You handled that with more grace than most adults would," she whispered to Maya. "I'm impressed." Maya squeezed her hand. "You taught me." They walked out of the classroom together, side by side. The hallway was filled with the usual buzz of the end-of-day scramble, but something felt different. Teachers passed and smiled. Students whispered as they passed Maya and her mom. Not in a mean way this time, not in the way that made her shoulders curl in. These whispers were different, full of curiosity and admiration. When they stepped outside, the sun was low in the sky, casting a warm golden hue across the playground and parking lot. Dr. Hassan turned to her daughter. "Want to grab?" "Ice cream?" she asked. Maya grinned. "Definitely." They walked toward the car, a quiet stretch of peace wrapping around them. But as they crossed the sidewalk, Maya paused. "Mom?" "Yes, baby." "Why didn't you say anything sooner, like when I told?" "People where you worked," and they laughed. Dr. Hassan smiled, her expression thoughtful, "because I wanted you to believe it first, not them. If you kept believing, it wouldn't matter what anyone else said." Maya nodded slowly. "I did believe. I just wish they had." "They do now," her mom said. "And more importantly, you showed them why they should. You stood up there and spoke your truth, even when they laughed. That's what real courage looks like." "I'm proud of the work I do, but I'm even prouder of you." Maya looked down, trying to hide the smile that stretched across her face. She didn't have to hide it, but she liked holding the moment close. Just for herself, they got into the car. As Dr. Hassan started the engine, Maya glanced out the window. Watching kids scatter across the sidewalk, still buzzing from the day, she imagined what tomorrow would be like. Would Jake ask her about space again? Would Zoe want to come over and meet her mom properly? Would someone ask her how they could work at NASA one day? Maybe, but none of that really mattered. Because today, Maya had stood at the front of a classroom and told the truth. She had watched that truth get torn apart. Then she had watched it walk through a door wearing a NASA badge and change everything the next day. The world would still spin. The rockets would still be built. The questions would still come, but Maya had already launched, not into space, not yet, but into something better, into belief, into pride, into strength. And now no one could laugh that away.